The phone felt heavy and cold as Victoria set it down on the glass coffee table. She stared at the black, reflective screen, seeing only the blurred, watery distortion of her own living room and the city lights beyond. Outside her 23rd floor apartment, a persistent autumn drizzle fell, painting the skyline of the metropolis in long, melancholic streaks of gold and white against the darkened glass. "Don't come, Vicky." Her mother's voice had been a steel cable, taut and unyielding. "Natalie doesn't want you at her wedding. You understand, after that last conversation." "Mom, that's ridiculous. It's been 6 months." "So what?" She was clear. She said, "If you show up, she'll walk out of her own wedding." Those were her exact words. "And you're supporting her on this?" A long, telling silence stretched through the line. "I want my youngest daughter to have a peaceful wedding day." A bitter smile touched Victoria's lips. She opened her laptop, her fingers moving with a practiced, detached efficiency. She canceled the order at the renowned jeweler's, a pair of diamond earrings, a cool 500,000 rubles. That was the gift she had chosen for her little sister. Natalie, the family's golden child, who at 30 had finally decided to marry her Oleg, a mechanic from the suburbs. Mom was over the moon, Dad had agreed to cover the reception at a local restaurant, and the whole extended family was descending upon their sleepy hometown for the grand event. And the eldest daughter? She was politely asked to stay away. The root of it all was that family gathering 6 months back, when Victoria had brought Miles to meet her parents. Miles had made quite the impression. Tall, with an athlete's build, draped in a suit that whispered rather than shouted its cost, he carried himself with the quiet assurance of someone born into comfort. He drove a black Porsche, spoke with a polished, thoughtful cadence, and his ambition was a tangible force in the room. For some reason, Natalie had taken an instant dislike for him. "What's with the act?" she'd muttered as Miles stepped outside to fetch the gifts from his car. "Mr. High and Mighty, what does he even do?" "It's the family business," Victoria had replied tersely. "Something his father built." "Family business," Natalie had parroted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Sounds fancy. What, does he run a food truck?" "Natalie, stop." "Why? It's a fair question. Or is it a state secret?" Miles had returned with a box of aged cognac and a bouquet for Natalie. She'd accepted the flowers with frosty indifference. Throughout dinner, her barbs were constant and sharp. Miles maintained his composure, but Victoria saw the faint tightening around his eyes, the slight strain in his smile. The blow-up had started over something trivial. Natalie was describing her dream wedding, though the family budget only allowed for a hall at the local community center. "What if we helped?" Victoria had offered. "Miles might be able to arrange something." "No." Natalie's response was a whip crack. "We'll manage on our own. We don't need your charity." "Honey," their mother had interjected cautiously, "maybe we should hear them out." "I said no. We're not paupers. We'll do it ourselves." "No one's calling anyone a pauper," their father had tried to soothe. "It's just a generous offer." "A generous offer comes from the heart, not from a place of wanting to flaunt how much better off you are." Miles had just shrugged, bewildered. Victoria felt a hot wave of embarrassment. It got worse. Natalie began openly ignoring Miles, answering in monosyllables and feigning dramatic yawns when he spoke. And just before they left, her little sister had truly lost it. "I hope you know what you're doing, Vic, or do you even care? Just living the high life. You've landed yourself in clover, I'll give you that. But what am I saying? You're a professional when it comes to wealthy boyfriends. You've got quite the collection." Miles had gone pale. Victoria had snatched up her bag, her voice trembling. "We're leaving." "Just go," Natalie had flung at them. "I'm tired of your condescending little show." They hadn't spoken since. Miles arrived at her apartment at 6:30. Victoria was curled on the sofa, arms wrapped around her knees, gazing at the city lights winking to life in the twilight. The large TV in the living room was on mute,
a silent parade of colors. "Hey," he said, leaning down to kiss the top of her head. "You're a million miles away." "Hey, it's nothing." He took off his suit jacket and hung it meticulously in the closet. After a year together, he'd learned her tells. When Victoria said, "It's nothing," in that particular hollow tone, it was definitely something. "Vic, what's going on?" "Nothing important." "Don't do that. You look like you're at a vigil. Talk to me." She sighed, her eyes meeting his, full of a quiet sorrow. "Natalie's getting married." "And?" "This Saturday."
He sat down beside her. He preferred not to think about Victoria's younger sister. After that unforgettable visit, he'd told Victoria more than once that she might need to reevaluate her family ties. People who couldn't muster basic respect for her didn't deserve her energy. "How do you know? Your parents?" "A cousin let it slip 2 weeks ago, by accident. Mom never said a word. I even bought a gift. I was working up the nerve to tell you." "And?" "Today, Mom called, told me not to come. Natalie doesn't want me there." Miles shook his head. He wasn't surprised. After that visit, he understood that neither he nor Victoria commanded any real respect in that household. "Fine, we didn't want to go to that circus anyway. We'll have a spa weekend." "Miles." "What?" "I think I still want to go." "Why? You were explicitly disinvited." "She's my sister, my only one, and I'm the older one. I was supposed to be at her wedding." He stood up, walked to the kitchen, and pulled a bottle of water from the fridge. It frustrated him how soft Victoria was with her family, how she let them belittle her and then bore the hurt silently. He'd seen this pattern before. "Vic, think about it. You show up, you cause a scene at her party, your sister gets angrier, your parents take her side. What's the point?" "Maybe we shouldn't have left so abruptly last time. Maybe we should have stayed, talked it through." "Talked it through?" He returned to the living room. "After what she said to you? I'm still amazed I kept my cool." Victoria pressed her lips into a thin line. "The wedding is at this beautiful place, a restaurant called the Gilded Lily. I've seen pictures online. Incredible interior, European-style menu. Someone must have helped them with the money." At the name, Miles' eyebrows shot up. He stopped in the middle of the room. "The Gilded Lily? You're sure?" "Positive. That's what Mom said. In our hometown. Why?" Miles slowly sank into an armchair. "What is it?" she asked, alarmed. Do you know the place? Is something wrong with it?" "You could say that." "Are you going to tell me?" He paused, then spoke with certainty. "The Gilded Lily is mine. I bought it 4 months ago, along with 3 other properties in the region." Victoria's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. "So your sister's wedding, the one who hates me and banned you, is happening in my restaurant." They stared at each other in the quiet room. Then, slowly, a smile began to spread across Victoria's face, starting at the corners of her lips and growing wider. "Now that's a twist. You're telling me." "So, what do we do now?" Victoria asked, the smile still playing on her lips. Miles thoughtfully rubbed his chin. "Technically, nothing. They booked the event, paid the deposit. I had no idea it was your sister. The contract is under Oleg Morozov. That's the groom's last name." "Right, so he's the client, probably saved up for his dream wedding." She stood and began pacing, a plan crystallizing in her mind. "Miles, who's managing the event?" "The restaurant manager, Greg. Good guy, been there for years, started under the previous owner." "Do you ever just show up at your restaurants?" "Sometimes, but I've never been to the Lily since the acquisition. It runs smoothly. I think my dad stopped by once or twice." She stopped in front of him. "How would you like to conduct an impromptu site inspection at the Gilded Lily this Saturday?" He looked intently at her. "Victoria, where are you going with this?" "You're the owner. You have every right to visit your property at any time. It's just a coincidence there's a wedding. And you just happened to be with me?" "Well, yes. Maybe you wanted to introduce your fiancé to the business."
A smirk tugged at his mouth. That's an ambush. It's poetic justice. I was cut out of a family event without a second thought. Mom took her side, Dad stayed quiet, and now it turns out they're celebrating in my fiancé's venue. Okay, let's say we go, then what? A public spectacle?
She perched on the arm of his chair. That depends entirely on them. We're not doing anything wrong. You're inspecting your business, I'm with you. If they're reasonable people, they'll grasp the situation and act accordingly. And if they aren't? Then I'll have final, definitive proof that limiting contact was the right choice. Miles pulled her close, his arm around her waist. You realize this could mean a permanent break with your family. What relationship? I found out about my sister's wedding from a cousin, and 3 days before the event, I'm told I'm persona non grata. Does that sound like a relationship to you? He was silent. She was right. Her family's behavior was disrespectful, to her most of all. Maybe it was time. All right, but on one condition. If there's hysterics, we leave immediately. We won't ruin their day. Agreed. And you don't engage first. You hold your head high. I promise. They decided to arrive as the reception was beginning. Miles called Greg to warn him of the visit. The manager grew slightly nervous. The owner had never done a surprise inspection. Greg, it's fine, Miles reassured him. Just want to see how a big event is handled. You have a wedding on Saturday, right? Yes, sir, about 70 guests. Everything is set. Menu confirmed. Great. I'll be bringing my fiancé. Show us how the operation runs. Of course, Mr. Carter. Should I inform the guests of your arrival? No need. Don't want to intrude. That evening, Victoria stood before her closet for a long time. She needed to look impeccable. Not flashy, but in a way that left no doubt she needed no one's pity or patronage. She chose a midnight blue dress from an Italian designer, elegant, expensive, but not ostentatious. She paired it with the pearl earrings Miles had given her for her last birthday. Is it too much? She asked, emerging from the bedroom. Miles looked up from his laptop and smiled appreciatively. It's perfect, beautiful, and formidable. Exactly the point. Saturday dawned clear and bright. On the drive to the suburbs, Victoria was a bundle of nerves, her fingers constantly twisting the strap of her purse. Maybe this is a mistake, she breathed as they exited the highway. Too late for second thoughts, we're almost there. The Gilded Lily was situated in the heart of the old town, a stately building with white columns. Miles parked nearby. For a few minutes, they just sat, watching well-dressed guests stream through the entrance. Recognize anyone? Miles asked. Aunt Sheila by the door, Natalie's friends, and that guy in the white suit is the groom, Oleg. Then she saw her parents, her mother in a new dress, her father in the suit she'd bought him for his birthday. They looked joyful, radiant. Okay, Victoria said abruptly. Let's go before I chicken out. The manager, Greg, met them at the entrance. Mr. Carter, welcome. Everything is proceeding as scheduled. The couple seems very pleased. Excellent. Let's see the main hall. Of course, just be mindful. They're doing photos right now. They walked through the foyer. Victoria held Miles's hand in a vice grip, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. A moment later, she saw it all. Her younger sister in a cloud of white satin and lace, her parents a sea of familiar faces, and soon they would see her. Natalie stood by a tall window, resplendent in her gown. Oleg hovered nearby, grinning awkwardly. Guests were beginning to find their seats. Her mother saw them first. She was adjusting the floral centerpiece at the head table when she glanced up. Her face went ashen. A rose slipped from her fingers. Victoria? She uttered, bewildered. What are you... How did you... Her father turned sharply, then Aunt Sheila, then others. A wave of silence began to spread through the room. One by one, guests turned to look at the unexpected arrivals. Natalie, sensing the shift, broke from her photos. What's going on? She asked, spinning around. Her eyes locked with Victoria's, her expression contorted from confusion to raw fury.
"What are you doing here?" she shrieked, her voice slicing through the quiet. "I told you you weren't welcome. Get out." Miles stood silently, his hand tightening around Victoria's. "Natalie, calm down," Oleg pleaded, touching her arm. "I will not calm down," she screamed. "You came to ruin this for me. You just had to show up and show off, had to parade your rich catch in front of everyone so they'd all see how much better you're doing than me and my mechanic. Isn't that right? You can't stand me having one day in the sun." "Honey, please," their mother whispered, mortified. "Everyone is watching." "Let them watch. Let them all see what my sister is really like. It's never enough for her. Fancy boyfriends, designer clothes, her penthouse in the sky, and all of it just to prove she's better than me. She's been jealous since we were kids. This is her revenge." Victoria tried to speak, her voice steady but low. "Natalie, you're wrong. My relationship has nothing to do with you. I never chose a partner to spite you, and I have never, ever tried to humiliate you. If anyone has been competitive and cruel since we were children, it's been you. I don't even understand why." "Jealous? Of you?" Natalie let out a hysterical, shrill laugh. "Please, you think he actually loves you? You're just his latest accessory, a shiny toy for his arm. You found yourself a brainless wallet and you're so proud." Guests gaped. Some reached for their phones. "Speaking of complicated family dynamics, have you ever been in a situation where a family event turned into a showdown? What's your take on how to handle a jealous sibling? Let's discuss in the comments below. And if you're invested in seeing how this turns out, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next part of the story." "That's enough," Miles said sharply, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority as he released Victoria's hand and stepped forward. "If you don't stop this instant, the event will be terminated." All eyes swung to him. Natalie fell silent for a shocked second before finding her voice again, even louder. "Oh, the knight in shining armor speaks up? Who do you think you are, giving me orders?" "I'm the owner of this restaurant," Miles stated, his tone even and final. "And no, you don't need to be afraid of me." A stunned hush swallowed the grand hall. The guests looked at each other, then back at Miles, disbelief etched on their faces. "That's impossible," Aunt Sheila breathed. "Mr. Carter is indeed the proprietor of the Gilded Lily," Manager Greg confirmed, his posture stiff with formality. "He acquired the establishment 4 months ago." Oleg was the first to move, swiftly crossing the room to Miles. "Sir, please accept our apologies, especially for my wife. She's just the stress of the day." "You don't owe me an apology," Miles interrupted, not unkindly. "I'm a vendor who provided a service you paid for. However," he continued, his gaze shifting pointedly to Natalie, "I do insist on a public apology to my fiancée from the person who just publicly vilified her." He let his words hang in the air. "Consider it a condition, an apology, or I shut this down. With a full refund, of course." "Victoria, don't," Miles whispered, touching his arm. "Let's just go." "No," he said, unmoving. "This ends now." Natalie stood frozen, her fists clenched at her sides, her knuckles white. Oleg went to her, taking her hands in his. "Natalie, please, for us, for our wedding, apologize to your sister." "I won't." "Natalie." Oleg's voice was low but firm, a tone she'd likely never heard from him before. "Apologize now." She looked from her husband's earnest, worried face to the ring of staring guests. Her mother was nodding frantically, her hands clasped in a pleading gesture. "Victoria," Natalie finally forced out, the words gritty and harsh. "I'm sorry for what I said." "Sincerity is debatable, but it'll do," Miles nodded. He turned to Greg. Please provide a case of your best champagne to the guests, compliments of the house. Immediately, Mr. Carter." Miles took Victoria's arm and turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at Natalie. "Just so we're clear," he said, his voice carrying to the now silent room, "the only reason this celebration continues is out of respect for her." He gestured to Victoria. "I had every right and every inclination to end it." They walked out. Victoria was silent all the way to the car, silent as Miles started the engine and pulled onto the main road. "Are you angry?" he finally asked. "No." "Then what?" She turned to look at him, the city lights tracing lines across her face. "Thank you." "For what?" "For having my back, and for helping me see clearly. I've spent years making excuses for them, looking for reasons, blaming myself. Today I realized the reason is them, and that I don't have to tolerate it." He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "I don't need thanks. I need you to promise me you'll never let anyone speak to you like that again. Anyone. Understood?" For the first time that day, a genuine, relieved smile broke across her face. "I promise." Miles laughed, the sound warm in the quiet car. "Now I can definitely marry you. That's the kind of partner I need, one who knows her own worth. You think I learned today?" "Without a doubt. Did you see yourself? Calm, dignified. You didn't stoop to her level." "I wanted to." "But you didn't, because you're better than that." "You know the real irony?" Victoria said, watching the city blur past. "What?" "Natalie spent her whole life dreaming of a fairy tale wedding, and she got it, in your restaurant. In a way, we gave it to her. A shame she's too bitter to see it." "Her loss," Victoria said, her voice firm and clear. "We have our own plans." Miles stopped at a red light and leaned over to kiss her. "We do, and you know what? Our wedding won't be at the Gilded Lily." "Why not?" "I don't want that place tied to family drama for us. We'll find somewhere else, somewhere just as beautiful, but that's only ours." "Deal." The light turned green. They drove on, leaving the past and its petty resentments behind them, moving steadily toward a future they would build on their own terms. All characters and events in this story are fictitious. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.